Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of the Samurai EFI Swap update. First piece I'm going to show you, uh, really on my Samurai I'm trying to keep AC, so I've got a double pulley crankshaft wheel. So what I did was I'm going to use a 36 tooth crank trigger wheel, design this up and just send it to Send Cut Send. Got them to cut it out and powder coat it. It looks pretty good. And then to mount it, I found some standoffs from a MasterCard. They're the same thread size as the crank bolts, the crank pulley bolts. So these will go in here, and it sits just about flush with the top of the pulley. And then I can bolt my crank trigger wheel up here. And so the next part of this is working on the Hall sensor mount. There's a couple bolts on the front of the oil pan that I'm going to try to use those and make a mount for the Hall sensor to pick up the crank trigger wheel. And the second piece of this update is I've been working on the ECU. So here is the Bllitzbox ECU, Speeduino ECU. I'll post a link to the Bllitzbox project over on the Speeduino forums for you guys. But this has been a really fun project. He posted all the files so that way you can send it over to PCBWay, get these printed out and made up. A couple of things that you got to do to it once you get it. Like I'm going to run Hall sensors for the crank and the calf. So there's a solder bridge there. And then I'm going to do 4-cylinder sequential. So there's another solder bridge over here. But really you get it and then you solder on the 34-pin super seal connector and a couple of the solder bridges and you're good to go. But I wanted to be able to bench test these in case somebody else wanted me to make them one, or maybe I'll start making more. But I got a Speedy Sim from DIY EFI. So he does a lot of good stuff with Speeduino, has his own boards and stuff. But he essentially created this Arduino board with potentiometers here, so that way you can plug it into your ECU and test out the sensors here before even getting into the car. So I made a harness to go from the Speedy Sim to the ECU, and I'm going to take you through a couple close-ups of what this looks like whenever it's testing and what Tuner Studio looks like whenever you adjust the signals and what it shows you, so that way you know that the ECU is working and will work before you even get it in the car. So we'll go through some close-ups and then let me know what you guys think. All right, so the first thing you've got to do with the Speedy Sim is make sure whenever you plug it into your USB port that the USB port actually recognizes it. If not, you might have to go to the Speeduino site and download the firmware so that way it'll recognize the board. But once you do, you'll get a new COM port and then you can connect to it. And then this is just a way for you to be able to see that it's actually working here within the tool. So I can adjust the RPMs on the board. And you can see, okay, I've got a good connection there. Because my RPM mode, I want potentiometer. So that way when I'm in Tuner Studio, I can adjust it and test it. But there's a couple different other options, fixed RPM or sweep. And then your configuration. So I've got mine set up as a 4-cylinder 4-stroke. And then the only other piece that you need to make sure matches is over here under config. Whatever your crank trigger wheel is going to be, this needs to match. Like I said before, I'm going to have a 36 crank. It doesn't have a 36 one crank and cam in here. So that's why I've got the 24 selected. It's got crank only, but I might test that out just to see if I put 2 signals to it, does it detect both of them? But essentially, make sure this system configuration matches what you're going to have in the vehicle or, load it onto the ECU. Make sure this is set up the same, and then you save it. And so it's ready to go. So what you can do from there is plug it into the ECU, hop over to Tuner Studio and do some bench testing. So that's what we'll do now. So I've got Tuner Studio up here. My last project, so I'm just going to open this back up. But first I need to connect the ECU. Need to connect it to 12 volts and then plug in the USB port for the ECU. We'll open it up. So we should be connected. And then under settings here, we've got trigger set up. So here's where we make sure that it matches. So I've got 24/1 single tooth cam. That way, what I've got in the configuration for the SpeedySim and the ECU match up. And then I've also kind of pre-programmed the other sensors so that way they've got a range to work in. And on SpeedySim, you can see the RPMs in the upper left here. They're like 2200, so I can adjust those on the SpeedySim. Make sure that's working good. And then likewise with everything else. So and right here, the throttle position sensor, it's at 70, 100, 20, so that's working like it should. Engine map, I don't have a check for that one. And then we've got air inlet temp. So yeah, we can crank it up. That one works. Coolant temp over here to the right. So I can take it up. So that works. So to me, that's a successful bench test. And I'm going to give you guys a close-up of what the SpeedySim looks like. So that way you can kind of see how it lights up and shows everything. Especially since I'm doing sequential injection. It's pretty neat. So let me get the camera set up nice and close and take you guys through it. All right, so some close-ups of the SpeedySim. This would be kind of hard to see, but I'll kind of hold it up so that way you can see it. Like right now, I've got my RPM set at 0, but you can see I've got one of the lights down here. That's for the idle air control valve, so it's good. And then you'll see once I start the RPMs up, there'll be another light that comes on, which is the fuel pump. And then these are our 4 injector lights, our 4 ignition lights, because I'm running sequential. And they should start flashing. And so we'll roll into it real slow. So here I got like 600 RPM. So you can see all my injectors firing, my coil packs are firing. So that's pretty good. Let me see how slow I can make it go, so that way you can kind of see how those are rolling. But super neat to be able to adjust my RPM signal here. You can see the injectors firing, the coil packs will be firing, and then we can run it all the way up. You know, that's 5,000 RPM right there. So you can see everything working. Everything working here. Sensors are working. The only one I haven't figured out kind of to test is the O2 sensor, since we're going to run a wideband on this. But we'll figure that part out as we go. But for the most part, all of our sensors are working. My Hall sensors for my cranking camshaft should work when I hook them up. So just a cool little tool to be able to bench test the ECUs before you even put them in the car. All right, so tune in for part 3 here in a couple weeks. Hopefully we got some more good progress on getting the wiring installed and a few other things. Thanks for watching.